Good morning. Today I'm doing a blind reading. It's basically a chart that I've been given to me and I don't know who it is. I don't look at the aspects, I just look at the picture. So I look at the lines and then very quickly try and scribble a few notes, basic impressions. It's been given to me by my husband. So keep in mind the last person he gave me was Rod Stewart. So yeah, keep that sort of that in mind. What I'm trying to do is to introduce you to astrology if it's new to you, to do it in a subtle way so that you think, okay, maybe one or two things in there are interesting, maybe there's something in it, I may look a bit deeper. If you're already interested in astrology, there may be bits mentioned, you think, I've forgotten that, okay, yeah, that is interesting, I can go and look at my chart or somebody else's chart. The things I did find interesting from this chart are the importance of squares to the nodes and how they propel us forward our life path, or if you don't take possibly the gifts that are given to you at that moment, you may go backwards, or you slip a little bit backwards. Also the importance of Uranus and Eros, especially when they're connected, in waking us up and reinventing ourselves and feeling a passion for life again. And the last thing I possibly found amusing is this chart is what Capricorns look like when they show off, if they've got a bit of Leo in them. I've had quite a few Capricorn friends. Just to give you a hint of what to expect from this, I'm going to tell you what my friends are like. I had one friend when I was very young who was a Capricorn moon, and he used to have cobwebs in the corner. He used to get twigs from the garden and spray cobwebs on them in the corner of his room. Yeah, it was something he was going through, and he would put his head down and look through his eyebrows and scowl and grunt at everybody in a very long coat. The other Capricorn friend I had was a Capricorn moon, and she married a young man in his 20s who was a funeral director. And the other Capricorn lady I know since I've been older was married to a doctor who was used to work with spines, bone doctor I'm going to call him. I'm sure it's not that, I'm sure that's something else. But she wanted to set up her own funeral home. So I'm going to leave you with those thoughts, and to see if you can imagine who this person may be. And I'll see you at the end just to sum up. See you in a minute. Good morning. I'm whispering a little bit here. I've asked my husband to give me a blind chart, a chart who I don't know who it is. Last time he did this, he was Rod Stewart. And when he gave me the date of the birth this time, I thought, oh my God, who's this? Obviously he's probably not still alive. Anyway, I'm going to go through it. Automatically when my husband gives me I always think it's got something to do with driving or speed or cars or something like that, but I can't see any Virgo in this, so I don't think it is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the chart very quickly. Actually, I'm going to take it slowly. So if you're new to astrology, I'm going to try and explain in about 5-10 minutes little snippets of what the planets may be and what the effects may have. So I'm going to try and slow it down to make it easier, because I know somebody very well on Patreon, and she said, I'm interested in learning about astrology, but it honestly seems like a nest of worms, nest of snakes. I don't know who is nest of snakes. It's just difficult. It's complicated. So I'm also thinking about doing astrology, really relaxed astrology lessons that can be a bit of fun, because I think it's just so important to introduce ourselves to how energy forms itself. And it leads on to so many different questions. But it's self-discovery really, isn't it? And to seeing life in others too. Anyway, shut up, Lindsay. Let's start with what I have with this chart. When I looked at it, I don't look at the chart placements below. I just look at the colours, the lines and the planets and the structure of the chart. I haven't got a birth time. So if you are new to astrology, if you don't have your birth time, this is how it affects the chart. You don't know where the planets fall in the different houses. And the houses are like the backdrops of a play. It's like the scene that's set, the painting at the back of the play. You just don't know what area that planet is trying to express itself in. Another important thing, if you don't have the time of your exact birth time, is that there's 2 axes in your chart. One's called an ascendant, which is horizontal and across the middle of your chart, and one's called the ascendant descendant. One's called the MCIC, which splits it vertically, your chart, in half, really, and they're really important. And what may happen, apart from the houses, is that you may have a very important planet stuck on or conjunct one of those axes, which will change the whole taste of your chart. For instance, I've forgotten his name. What's the lead singer of Nirvana called? Why have I gone blank with his name? I can see his face. Mr. Nirvana has got Uranus, which is a very erratic, forward-moving, eccentric planet on his ascendant. So he's going to basically live that planet in some way. So anyway, let's go on with this chart. To be honest, first thoughts are the chart's not particularly overexciting. There's nothing that stands out, but as I said, I haven't got the exact birth time, so that may affect it. I'm just going to go quickly through what I saw. When we're looking at the sun up here, when you're looking at the sun, you're looking at your soul. It's like who you were before you came down and what you need to express. So the sun is in Cancer up here, and the moon, which to me is a little bit like it's like a memory that sits inside you of your most recent, almost, not impressive, but the biggest impression, I can't think of the word, excuse me, the past life that has made the biggest or the most impact on you. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, these are opposite each other. Traditionally, I guess, the sun being masculine and the father, and the moon being feminine, oftentimes a mother. People say that it can indicate a little bit of strife at home. To be honest, I've not noticed that. It's a bit of a seesaw with regards to trying to pull yourself together in one, to format yourself in a state that you find agreeable. But to be honest, when I've seen these in other people's charts with the Cancer Capricorn opposition, it often gives a very traditional feel, very composed, very steady, and quite tough with themselves, and can appear quite cool to others. And you wouldn't think that with Cancer, but Cancer can often have that feeling about them. Both will ultimately be there if you need help, but they're not somebody to, which we would say in England, fanny around trying to, do things that don't need to be done. So tough and traditional is what I've got there. So, okay, I'm looking out thinking that's fine. Looking to see if there's anything in particular with regards to the sun and moon that I can bring into this. It's really obvious. Only thing I could possibly pick out here is that the moon has got a lovely trine. I don't know the exact degree of the moon, as I said, because I don't know the exact time of birth, to Psyche or Psyche, and that can often be an ability to understand your own soul. And I think this is a fascinating asteroid. I don't normally bring asteroids into readings, but it can be a recognition of your own journey inside yourself and where you came from. And oftentimes you can see it in your own internal journey, but sometimes we spot it in others. Sometimes we spot it perhaps in somebody else expressing who they are, and that, that's who I want to be. And oftentimes it can be an attraction as well. When we find somebody we're attracted to, you think, oh my God, this sounds a bit rude, but you touch me in some way. You make me feel like you see me, that type of thing. So that's what I've got there, just an edge of sensitivity, I suppose. Am I making it sound romantic? I don't really think this is a very romantic chart, but I don't know. Let's go on to Mercury up here. Again in Cancer. Mercury in Cancer can be softly spoken, slow moving, considerate in the way that they express themselves. But what I noticed is we're looking at the smaller planets at the moment, but when they have aspects to the larger planets, can you see this red line down here to Neptune? And Neptune is creativity and illusion, can be deception, it can be like spiritual beauty, it can be lots and lots of things. When I see Mercury, Neptune, it can go in two directions. a square traditionally is difficult to express, so you tend to be looking at the more negative connotations to do with Mercury, Neptune, and that can be a blockage in the way that you do express yourself. For instance, you may not be very good with facts. You may be better with what I guess is, art or fiction, because your imagination may still be good, but you may have an element of deception in how you speak to yourself and your own thought processes, which can earn you money, to be honest. I know that sounds a bit sort of harsh, but it can, especially if you put it with an aura of beauty around it. Does that make sense? Something like film, something like creative writing, something like politics. There is just an element of deception there, which can be, as I said, very magnetic, but can often be very difficult for the person because they believe things which aren't different from everybody else around them. They can tell themselves little stories. The other one I noticed here as well, if I've got this right. Have I got this right? I think I'll talk about that at the end. Oh yeah, okay, and I'm going to talk about it now. Because we're talking about Mercury, which is the mind and the speech and the communication and the way that you think, it's got a lovely aspect to Jupiter. Now I'm going to pull these two planets together because Jupiter it's flamboyant. So the way this person speaks, these two planets are very much what I would say like jazz hands planets. Those planets where there's a bit of drama with the way that they do communicate, or the things that they say, can often be very amusing, can often get everybody's attention. So there is an element here of what I've put when I wrote little notes on this, tall stories, somebody who can put a flair into what they're saying. So that's what I've got so far. But I would guess still with this sun and this moon here that this person's home life is traditional, but maybe an element of creativity. I still don't know what it is, who this person is. An inability to escape through fantasy. Now here we're moving on to the Venus and the Mars. I'm going to lump these two together because they're the same degree, and they're in Leo. Obviously I don't know the house. So it's basically desire nature, your Venus. There's lots more to it than that. And your Mars is how you get those desires met. They do say that if you have Mars and Venus together, that it can be very attractive to others. I know Al Pacino's got this, if I'm right. I've not found that so either, but maybe I need to look a bit harder. But this is going to put a little bit more glamour, a little bit more warmth, a little bit more, what else do I say? It's generosity and the ability to spend money, the ability to give and to think there's a flow in life. It's got a little bit more grandiose feeling to the rest of the chart. Somebody who's more playful, somebody who likes perhaps partners that are quite glamorous, which isn't going to fit very well with the Capricorn moon. So there's going to be two elements, if this is a man, I know it's a man actually, to what type of person they're attracted to. They need to be showy-offy, but not too much. Showy-off is a new word. You have got an opposition here to Chiron. So sensitivity to others, oftentimes with Chiron, may add to this Leo an ability to need to be included more, a little edge of more, well, perhaps a little bit more humble, as if they feel like they've been through the mill with everybody else. Leo on its own would not think that. They'll think, hey, yeah, I'm the top and, I'm king or queen bee. Excuse me. Which is why we love them. But here, it's like I feel your journey. I've been through those pains. I see it, but I'm still going to show off type of feeling. So this is what I've got so far. There is also a trine here to Capricorn. To Saturn, which is somebody who's persistent, somebody who works hard, somebody who gets their desires met and sticks to it, which I think is quite nice because as we're talking about attraction, there may be a Saturnian feeling to this person's partner because it's on the Venus and expressed in the moon as well. Right, the next thing I noticed, which isn't going to give you much indication how this person expresses themselves, but it's something I'm going to look into when I find out later who it is. When I shout downstairs, that means, is you have got here Chiron is 17 degrees in a fixed sign, which is Aquarius. You've got that square, the nodes here. Can you see the little red line here means square? That, to have a square to the nose, is almost like when planets hit something at 17 degrees on a fixed sign, which is also going to be Leo up here. So I'll talk about this in a minute. You're going to have an element of this person being shoved along or tripped up on their life path because you've got the nodal expression here. And your nodes are basically your journey in life, you know, what you're used to, what feels familiar, and where you feel consciously that you need to go. And if Chiron is playing a part in these nodes, it's going to be an element, I think it may be quite painful. Definitely a chance in life, which doesn't seem like a chance when it happens to us, of having to sit back on our heels and think, oh, okay, that must have meaning to it, and hence why Chiron is so wise. So when I find out this person's chart, I'm going to look specifically at what happened in Leo from 12, if planets transited from 12 degrees Leo, where these two planets are, to that 17 degrees point here. I'm looking for transits and fixed signs, basically, to see what was hit off and why it was hit off. So that'd be something I'd be interested to look at. And I'm going to basically start wrapping that up there. There is, I've talked about that already with Jupiter. I would normally go to the bigger planets here, because I've looked at very quickly how the smaller planets are affected by the bigger planets, and the bigger planets always have the strongest effect. But because I've looked at that very quickly, I can't really look at whether the bigger planets are conjunct angles because I don't have the birth time. But what I did notice is that Uranus here, being a slow, large moving bigger planet, is conjunct Eros. To put those two together in a chart is going to give somebody an element of overexcitability. Is that such a word? I don't know. There's going to need that dopamine fix. They want things new, they want things quick, and everything's going to be more exciting or amusing in some way. So it would be interesting to know how that plays out, especially as planets go all the way across these top ones here. Something exciting, something where the person will want to move quickly and feel like, oh yeah, this feels right because life's moving fast. Then you've got some sort of possibly desire nature or love interest coming in, and then a lesson afterwards is what I'm going to have a look for. I may be totally wrong, but that's what I've got there. So to sum up in a couple of sentences, conservative inner life, hardworking, very straight with themselves, hard with themselves, but their mind may not be very truthful, but could have an element of creativity to it. There's an element here of being very warm and generous, and the way that they express themselves in some way, or the way that they get their desires met, and a sensitivity there. So somebody that works hard. This isn't somebody who, as I said, who works with... It could be somebody who works in the creative entertainment industry because of the Leo there. But they'll be tough on themselves and have a very sort of normal home life, I would think. So that's what I've got in that one. Yeah, and I need to find out a drive for excitement and newness, definitely. So I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to shout downstairs to find out who it is. Ian? Who is it? Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. All right, thanks. Okay. Now there's got to be some... Okay, yeah, I should have known that from the Capricorn. I don't know if you heard that. Yeah, it's Pete Murphy from Bauhaus, which is interesting because, and I'm saying here, when I'm looking at the Cancer Capricorn, the people that I know that have that, it's very difficult to say this because of the people, lots of people have it, you think, well, that's not me and that's rude. But the people that I have that have the Cancer Capricorn opposition on the Sun Moon tend to have some difficulty with it, to be honest, as it does seem quite hard on them. And I know that he's had trouble with lots of band members, but I know that he was definitely forefront of the band. I'd be expecting a heavy Pluto because of the gothic feel as well. And his face is the one that I always bring up when we're talking about bone structure, because Capricorn and Capricorn moons tend to have a very, very, very slim, very sort of high cheekbone, very sort of enigmatic looking. I mean, David Bowie as well has a very similar look. And I know that they both like stole it because they both stole each other's ideas. I don't know who stole from who, to be honest. But I know that Pete Murphy sang is it Ziggy Stardust? I can't remember. Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah. So there's obviously an influence going on between them because their vibration may be very similar. And I know that David Bowie's also got Leo in him as well. So there's an element of a performer, but tough on set in a life. That is interesting. And an element of showmanship again. And maybe a self-deception, because there is some, I don't know much about Pete Murphy. I've always really loved Bauhaus. I just still, even now, think there's something fantastic about it. But I'm a bit of a horror film lover. But there is some element of disgruntledness, the word I've just made up, with band members there, where they got fed up with him possibly being at the front. And I know there's a video out there from years ago, and they're like, it looks like in a car park, and he's doing his very good gothic images, and they're all mucking about and basically look like they are gyrating behind him. They've had enough of him by this time. Yeah, okay. I'm okay, happy with that, because you can see the element of what I guess is a harder backdrop. An original style, possibly with the Eros there. That's, basically pushing that in, and the showmanship. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to disappear. I'm going to look at timings with those nodes that I talked about. I'm going to get back to you. See you in a minute. Okay, now that you've watched the video, I think it's important to try and find out what's happening with that nodal axis and that square to Chiron. As I said, I was looking for something that may hit off that axis. When Bauhaus were formed, Uranus was stuck onto his north node. So that would have set off that axis, which once you put square to the nodes, it normally can be difficult, but it can propel you forward. It's like I put the word springboard down here. The other thing that I found interesting was that same Uranus sextiles those sort of showy off Leo planets after he left the band, which makes me think that he was unable to express himself in some way. And I knew that the breakup was difficult because I think that I don't think he wrote the songs, and I think they thought that the rest of the band thought that he was taking too much of the credit, and he went straight into another band called Dallas Carr with the guy from Japan. There's a video out there, probably just before they broke up, where he's being very gothic-y and singing as he does in front of the camera, and the rest of the band behind him look like they're humping posts behind to take the mickey. So I don't think it was a very friendly breakup. The last thing is that Uranus Eros contact in his chart. And when you look at Wikipedia, no, you shouldn't look at Wikipedia, but I do, you can see how interested he is in the music, because he was saying that when he bought Bela Lugosi out, that he was twisting the music, and he was very interested in reggae and dub, and he was reversing the drums or something. I do find Uranus is extremely strong in people who are interested in music, especially DJs, electronic music, techno type music, and music production where you could play with it, and it's quite modern, and it's like that thumping music normally that gets people on the dance floor. So just a few things to look out for if you're interested in this type of thing. I mean, I know I am, but I'm just putting it out there because I think it's really, I've got a very strong belief that once we understand how energy is formed outwards, and then we look at ourselves inwardly, it gives us a whole different perspective of life. And then I think we can go much more inward to work with that. Anyway, I'm going to love you and leave you. Thanks, bye.